Hey, how's it going, guys? Ricky Summer here, and today I've come back in time to mix vocals. Cue the intro. Okay, welcome to Reapervision. This is the track I was working on a couple of weeks ago, the cover song video. So this is the song I'm covering, London, by Robots in Love. I'm going to be honest, I'm not super confident mixing vocals. It could also be I'm not super confident mixing my own vocals. That's also a distinct possibility. But I'm going to walk you through what I do and what I'm learning. Every time I record a new track, mix and master a new track with my own singing, I do learn something new. So let's go through it. So we've got a vocal track here, and it's mostly done. You know, I may re-record some bits and pieces here and there, depending on how it turns out after we're done with it. So I've tried a few things. I've tried my signature putting the mouth plugin in Reactor 5 on it to make it sound robotic and creepy and weird. I don't think that's the strat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off everything here in sequence to run you through what the track looked like right after being recorded and what it looks like now in my process. So let's go from the start. You can't hear it, can you? Nope, we got to compress it. So the first thing we're going to do is add our compressor back in. Let's listen again.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Kind of sounds bad, doesn't it? Like, it sounds really bad. I don't know how common it is for the vocal to sound this bad raw in other people's mixes, but in mine, it's pretty common. Is it the mic? Is it the room? Possibly yes on both counts. I've only got one microphone. It's a pretty cheap setup. It's not a bad mic. It's a Rode NT1A. It comes pretty well recommended. I quite like it. It's a workhorse. It's sort of like it does everything pretty well in my opinion, but it doesn't sound good raw. You need to put EQ on and you need to compress it. So I don't know if getting a better mic would improve what we're hearing right now. A different mic might be better suited to my voice. That's certainly a possibility. But for the moment, we've just got the one mic. One day I'll have a full collection of microphones and I'll be able to pick and choose the correct mic for the right job. But for the moment, this is what we have and it sounds like ass. So the next step is to add in some EQ. So I'm going to take you into the EQ plugin here and actually show you what we've got. So you can do a few things here. I do like to cut the low end, just as a general rule, because we don't need to hear that bass in the voice. My voice does have, I would describe my voice as very thick. It does have a lot of bass in it, even when I'm singing high. So I want to cut that out. If I want like a high pass old radio effect, I'll bump that up further just to like really cut out the bass and the low mids. But for the moment, we're not going to do that. I just want to cut out the bass so that it doesn't resonate awkwardly. It's just something I don't want to deal with. I don't want to hear it in the mix. I don't want it to compete with the bass, because then it can get muddy and it can come across as the vocal getting lost in the bass, even though the frequencies that you want to hear are still there and we're EQing them, we're actually boosting them. Even though those frequencies are still there, it can give off the effect that the vocal is getting lost, just because it's so pervasive throughout the mix that like half of it is disappearing in the bass and it's making the bass sound muddy. So just get rid of it. It's gone. Next up, I know that my voice likes to be boosted around 8,000. So that's what we've done. That's my starting point. Now, depending on the range of the song, I'll adjust that. So you'll learn your own voice, you know, but you can still be flexible because the quality of the song, the way that you sing it could be different. This is certainly not my usual type of song, and I don't usually sing this way. So we might change some things around. We'll see. And then I've also got 2,800 boosted. Generally, you know, I want the high parts of my voice, the higher frequencies, to lift out and be heard. And I want to probably, at all costs, avoid boosting those frequencies in any other track. any other instrument, just so the vocal comes out the strongest. Now, there's a couple schools of thought. There's like the pop school of thought where the vocal is king and it's right at the top, and you basically almost can't even hear the harmony, any other sound in the track. You hear like the drum beat and that's it, and that's what you'll hear on the radio. I hate that shit. Or you can do a little bit of an old school approach, which is what I describe it as, and that's have the vocal sitting a little bit more like on the top, but embedded in the icing of the cake that is your mix. So it's still a part of the whole production. It's still the most prominent part, but it's a little bit further in there, and it feels more cohesive and blended in, mixed in. That's what I'm trying to go for. Anyway, so we've added EQ. Let's have a listen.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Okay, that's already sounding a little bit better. I'm going to cut out the EQ and I'm going to show you again.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
All right. So if you're observant, you may have noticed that with the EQ on, it sounds brighter. The EQ off, it's very almost monotone, just dull. Okay, next up, let's try to color the sound. So it's not just a matter of singing well and making the vocal stand out in the mix. That's like the minimum what you have to do. After that, we actually have to make it sound good in the mix. So how do we do that? We need reverb, we need possibly some fancy effects. So what I'm going to do is next up, we're going to add in this ultra channel, and I'm using this specifically for the micro pitch shift. So what this is doing is essentially it's splitting the sound and detuning it ever so slightly and spreading that across the stereo mix. As far as I understand, I think this is what it's doing. That's how it works. The effect being that it makes it sound thicker, and depending on how extreme you make the effect, it can make it sound like there's a couple voices singing. So let me play the raw again. So we just got EQ and compression.
If I close my eyes now,
And now we're going to add the microtonal pitch shift, or micro pitch shift.
if I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
All right, now we're getting somewhere. Now it's starting to sound a little more interesting, but it still sounds dead and soulless. Why? Because it needs reverb. So now let's add the reverb.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down. If I listen closely, I can hear undertown.
Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. It actually sounds like it belongs in the mix a little more. It sounds like it was recorded in the same room, potentially, but we're going to add something else that's going to enhance that effect, and that's this delay here. We're going to use stereo delay to make it sound like it's in a big room. Let's have a listen.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Okay, so what's the difference between reverb and delay? That's an excellent question, and I'm not sure I can adequately answer it, but this is the way that I use them. I see reverb as a subtle spatial effect. I use it to make the voice sound like it wasn't recorded in an ISO booth or like a padded cell, to give it some space and some character. Now, if I want to actually make it sound like it's in a stadium or a car park or something, I tend not to want to use reverb for that. Like, I'll still have reverb on it. Always use reverb. I mean, what is this, Bush League? No, of course it's not. We're going to use reverb. So I'm not going to use reverb to make it sound like it's in a huge space, because I think that's overdoing it. Instead, I'd much rather use delay, which gives the impression that it's in a big space, but I think comes across a little cleaner. So delay, of course, is like clap, 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 that sort of thing. It's like an echo. So that's what I've done here. Let's actually take off the reverb, and we've just got the delay. Let's see what it sounds like.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Even that alone sounds so much better than without the reverb and without the delay, you know? So let's turn the reverb back on, and things can potentially get out of hand a little bit when you've got delaying into reverb, and it's a mess. So what I'm going to do is then re-engage this gate that I've got on the reverb. So I've got a special reverb track here just for the vocal. So we've got reverb for all these other instruments, and we've got gated reverb for the vocal. So what this does, I'm actually going to solo the vocal. Let's have a listen.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Now I'm going to turn off the gate.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Essentially, it trails on for longer. So what the gate does, let's listen back to just the last word. Down, down, and it's done. Without the gate, it goes for a little bit longer. So what the gated reverb does is just cleans it up a little bit, so you get the reverb effect, but you don't get it like trailing off into forever. I mean, the effect isn't that bad. The reverb that I've got on there isn't that heavy to begin with, but we've already got the delay. The delay is giving us the effect that it's in this big room, or like it's far away in the Grand Canyon, or in a car park, or in a cathedral, or whatever. It's giving us that spatial effect, and the reverb is just enhancing that, but we don't want it to get out of control. Like if you were actually singing in a big echoey space, it would be horrible. We don't want it to sound accurate. We just want to evoke that concept, that feeling. What I'm trying to do here is, it's a song about longing. So I want the voice to sound like it's far away, lost in a big, vast emptiness. I think that's what we're achieving, hopefully, with this delay and reverb. There we go. Okay, so let's listen to it again.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Okay, that's almost done. There's just one thing missing. It's like not perfectly in tune. There's a disconnect when recording vocals, and it could be very much a me issue. For those of you who have recorded vocals or do it on the regular, let me know, do you experience this issue? When you're recording vocals, I feel like there's a disconnect from the music. When I'm playing music and singing along, even when I'm listening to music and singing along, and I'm like doing it for fun, I feel more invested. I feel like I'm more involved in the song. As soon as I hit record, there's the stress of the recording, the stress of having to get it right. It also just feels like I'm singing along with karaoke, There's the issue of hearing yourself well enough, and also hearing the track well enough so that you can sing in time. It's just a stressful situation, and I don't do well in it. I think I'm a much better singer live, and it makes me very, very sad, because I like singing. I like producing tracks with vocals, but I actually hate recording vocals, and it makes me sad just trying to mix my own vocals, because I'm never satisfied. So what we're going to do is use pitch correction. Now, pitch correction is not auto-tune. Auto-tune is you're singing into like for example, this thing is a vocoder and it has auto-tune. You select a key and you sing into it, and it will only sound the correct notes. So regardless of what you're singing into it, it will try to latch that note onto a note that you specify, or, within a scale that you specify. So that's auto-tune. This is pitch correction. So there's nothing automatic about it. We are telling the vocal, we're telling the track, the plugin, exactly what notes we want to sound out. It's actually quite cool. So we're going to engage this, open it up. This is retune. This just comes free with Reaper. So this is actually really great as a tool to see how accurate you are as a singer. I think this has the potential to help you be a better singer. And make no mistake, if you're completely off, this will not save the vocal. It just won't. You can, you can adjust the notes, but it's going to sound so unnatural. To get a clean vocal that sounds natural, that sounds like you actually sang it, you have to still be pretty right on. I'm sorry. That's the way it goes. So, let's have a listen to this.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Okay, that sounds a lot better, right? With the pitch correction. So the way this works is you'll go into correction. You'll select attack time. I'm doing 20 milliseconds here. So essentially what that means is the shorter the attack time, the quicker it will fix the note. If you have a longer attack time, it'll like slide up to the note. So I like around 20 milliseconds. I might adjust it depending on the song, depending on how I'm singing. Then we'll go manual correction, track pitch, and we'll just play it. And as you play the track, it will show you where the vocal or whatever instrument this plugin is on, it'll show you where it sits on this piano roll. Okay, so you'll see here, the first note I know is a B, but I sing it a little bit sharp. If I take this out, let's have a listen.
If I close my eyes.
You hear that? If I close... I almost hit the C. So let's put that back in.
If I close my eyes now.
And I know exactly why that's happening, because I'm worried about being flat, so I'm overcompensating. And this is a great example of how this can help me be a better singer just by analyzing what I do so that then I can fix it. So let's keep going.
Close my eyes now. I can see the rain fall down.
Okay, let's have a look at this note here. We go up to a C sharp. I'm actually going to delete this. Let's have a listen.
I close my eyes now. I can see.
Let's listen again.
I close my eyes now.
And now we'll add the pitch correction back in.
I close my eyes now. I can see.
The difference is so subtle. This is what I'm talking about. You don't use this plugin to fix a bad vocal. You use it to polish a vocal that is almost there. That's how I use it, at least. So what's happening here? You'll notice we're pretty much right on that note. There's a little bit of vibrato there, but that's okay. But what is happening is I'm kind of going into the note there. So that the attack of the note, the first little bit of the note, it actually doesn't sound out of tune because it's so quick, but it does sound a little harsh. So by leveling that out, and you'll notice I'm not going like right to the firewall, because if I do that, let me drag it out here. Let's have a listen. Sounds unnatural. It's this, you can hear the correction, right? Because it's up in this other note and quickly correcting. So let's take that back. So what I've done is I've started the correction at the point where I'm accurately on the note. And we take it off again. It's subtle as hell, guys. Another example here, I'm going up, so I'm sort of anticipating that. We can cut these out. It's really not that bad. But we put those back in, it's just a little bit of polish. Especially here. See? It's sort of it's a note that's approaching my sort of break area, so I'm giving it a little more mustard to keep it solid, and I'm sliding up in anticipation to release the tension and get to a note that I'm more comfortable with. I know that's what I'm doing. I can see that's what I'm doing, so we're just smoothing that out a little bit. It's just like polishing, smoothing out the vocal. And then this last bit here, I'm going to delete that. Down. There's some, there's a bit of vibrato there. So I've essentially just smoothed out the vibrato. If you want vibrato, then fine, you leave it. You don't pitch correct that, because you will smooth out the vibrato. So there are areas where, I would smooth vibrato, in areas where I would not, depending on how I want it to sound. It's just purely an artistic choice. So I've gone through all of this, and any notes that are like, oh man, buddy, there's something not right about it, I'll put a little bit, I'll draw a little line there, we'll pitch correct it, see if it sounds better. If it sounds better, we keep it. If it doesn't, we re-record. So why do we use this? We use this to polish out a vocal that is almost there. We use it, unfortunately, when we're pressed for time. I used to have this producer buddy who did a lot of recording, vocals, stuff for radio, like, the 91, 101.1, the Fox FM, whatever, those sort of things. He did those. He also did Foley work, so that's like recording sound and mixing sound, like sound effects for games. He did one of the Call of Duty games, so like we're talking like gunshots and footsteps and that sort of thing. So the way he used pitch correction, or the reason he used pitch correction, is because he was often under a time crunch. It was, this is the day you get the job, this is the day it is due. You just haven't got the time to do that many re-recordings of the vocal, or to scrub through each little bit to make sure that it's all perfect. So he'd use pitch correction to ensure that it was good enough for them to print and send off, just because they weren't given enough time to do it. So we're in a similar situation here, where I only have a week to actually get this done. So we're going to pitch correct. Hi, how you doing? So there we go. That is the vocal. There's just one thing missing. We're going to go into trim here. I am going to bring up volume pre-effects. Now, this is something I've talked about before. I believe in the automation video. There'll be a card to that up in the top right there. So automating the pre-effects volume, just to be clear, is not the volume on the fader, right? It's not that. It's the volume before it goes into the effects. So why would we adjust this as opposed to the fader? If we're adjusting the fader volume, we're also adjusting the volume of the effects. For example, our reverb, not our reverb in this case because it's bussing off, but our delay. So if we want to make a specific word quieter, we're also making the delay associated with that word quieter as well. We don't want that. We want the effects to be unaffected, pun unintended. So the way we do that is with the pre-effects volume. So let's have a listen through this, and what we're looking for is words that are just coming out too loud, words that are too soft that we want to boost the volume of. We're also looking for plosives, P's and B's, potentially, though ideally you would re-record. I'd much rather re-record a plosive than try and mask it out. It's just easier. Masking our plosive is, in my opinion, too difficult to really warrant spending that much time on it. But we will be softening S sounds, because they come out way too harsh, especially when you're EQing, you're boosting higher frequencies. It just sounds ugly. So let's have a listen here. There we go. Always. I think I'm going to lower that just a little bit. So I'm going to hold control and just draw that in. And you'll notice that you actually see the waveform change before your very eyes. Also, pro tip, turn off snapping when you do this, guys. So let's have a listen to that now. Just side note, we've got a little bit of an issue here with the pitch correction, this is a perfect example of where pitch correction can go wrong and why it's not a cure-all. So what I've done here is, clearly there's some vibrato there. It's not that bad, so I've just pulled back the bar, the line, So we're going to leave that free and unaffected, unpitch corrected, and then at the end of the note where the vibrato gets a little bit too crazy, we're going to bring that back into line there. Okay, so back to the pre-effects volume automation. So what I've done here is I've just taken that note I sing it very loud compared to the rest of the vocal. So I've just brought it down, and it sounds like, I mean, what I would have done anyway is pull back from the mic to hit that louder note, but it sounds like I've done it, you know, more efficiently. Let's have a listen again. There we go. Also here, around. That, even though it doesn't look loud, I don't like it. We're gonna cut that a little bit. So we're just gonna draw that in, take out the other little nodes. I want to maybe straighten this out. Let's have a listen. There we go. So what I didn't like about that was it sounded like I was going, always around, in exaggeration. No, I don't want that. I want it to be smooth. In fact, that might be a little too smooth, so we can raise the volume a little bit to maybe 2.5. Let's have a listen. Maybe even more. Maybe it's really not as bad as I thought it was. 150. Yeah, right. I can deal with that. You know what? I might also make that slope a little more gradual. Let's have a listen. And possibly, I mean, you can certainly go overboard with this, but better to go overboard and then fix it later, right? Let's lower that as well. It's a little better, So then, if we turn this off, and back on, there we go. Okay, so that is the crux of it. That's what we're doing when we're mixing vocals. So there's just one more thing I want to touch on. I didn't touch on it before, is because it's something I'm learning, you know. I often wonder, how is it that you hear like an older recording before the era of pitch correction? Because now it's a matter of course. You do not hear recordings without pitch correction on the vocal. Not on the radio, at least. It doesn't happen. That kind of makes me sad too. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. The overuse of certain effects and whatnot, because everything has to sound clean and polished. It's the world we live in. So before the era of pitch correction, when singers were not right on, you know, the whole time through, they hit dud notes and they sounded bad, and maybe they really weren't very good singers at all, but yet they were the front man of a band and somehow they made it work. Why do those recordings sound okay to us, but if Joe Blow sings poorly into a microphone in his bedroom, it sounds like ass? I think possibly it's compression, you know? You got to compress the shit out of the vocal, right? We could probably compress this even further. So let's have a look at our compressor here. I've just used, I'm pretty sure, because this is usually what I do, I go to the maximizer preset on my compressor, and then I actually go, you know what, fuck it, let's go 10 to 1. We'll go minus 10 there on the threshold, and maybe we'll bump the input or something here. But you know what, I want to go back, please. There we go. So actually, oh shit, look what I've done here. I've actually pushed the input like right to the firewall. So what that means is you've got two options here for volume. You can raise the volume of the output, which means after it's all affected, whatever comes out is going to be louder, or you can raise the volume of the input. So you're raising the volume going into the compressor, which means that it's going to be, it's going to sound more compressed, you know? It's like shoving Play-Doh through one of those spaghetti maker Play-Doh things, you know what I mean? So if I wanted to compress this further, I would actually just put on a different additional compressor here. So I might go, I don't know, Rough Rider 2 maybe, and we'll pull up, what preset are we going to use? Let's use the New York, no, not New York Parallel, maybe Good One. Let's have a listen to that.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Okay, that's a little bit extreme, but that's partially because it's actually compressing some of these effects. I've put it after the delay, so it's actually compressing the delay. So what if we put it before the delay? Let's have a listen.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down. If I listen closely, I can hear the town.
And now let's turn it off.
If I close my eyes now, I can see the rain fall down.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit extreme, but which one would you rather hear? What sounds more... I want to use the word dynamic, though it's not accurate, I don't think, to use that word because it doesn't sound dynamic. It isn't dynamic. We're compressing it to make it sound more homogeneous, but it does sound louder. The vocal is more in the front of the mix, you know? It's more of a pop sound. It's right up in there, right up in your face. It's extreme. I'm not going to do it, at least to that degree. I'd rather put a subtler additional compression on there, but you get the idea, right? If you're trying to go for that pop vocal up in the front, it's loud, it's big, it's boisterous. I think that's the way you do it, and that's how you would make... That's how you get that like professional sound. But this is a whole other topic. You know this. I think this video is going to be longer than one of these videos normally is, just because this is a huge issue. It's a bit of a minefield. We don't need to get into it because listen, get angry out my blood as to what is expected of you to get a sound that the promoters would be like, oh yeah, hey yeah, and that's what we want to promote. All right, so let's run a quick summary. At the top of the chain, we've got pitch correction, so that's the first thing the vocal goes through. Then we've got this the ultra channel here that uses the micro pitch shift. Now this is something that I specifically use, that I like to use. Usually you do the EQ next, but in this particular case, I thought it sounded better with the EQ after the micro pitch shift. But you can play around with that. After the EQ, we've got the compressor, then maybe an additional compressor to tighten it up further and give it some dank color and make it pop a little bit more if you so desire. Then I've got the delay, and then that whole thing is running into reverb. So if you just want to do just a really, really simple, clean vocal with no fancy effects, then we're going to go EQ, compressor, reverb. As simple as that. Alright guys, so that's how I mix vocals in Reaper. I hope this was enlightening. I hope this helps someone. Let me know what your process is for recording and mixing vocals in the comments below, because I'm always open to new ways of doing things. And like I said, I'm still learning, especially with this particular topic. I'm not 100% satisfied with how I handle vocals, especially my own vocals. So I'm excited to see, you know, if you have a different way of approaching this particular topic. But for the moment, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to gently caress that like button. Be excellent to each other. And I'll see you next time. Ricky Summer, out.